Everyone, Evan DeMarsh here. Check out trendsjournal.com for the world's top trend forecast you're not going to get anywhere else. Trendsjournal.com. This year, 2026, make it the year you leave the mainstream news media behind. Think for yourself, think independent, and stay ahead of the pack. So please go to trendsjournal.com for the world's best trend forecasts you will not get anywhere else. Or go to share, like, follow down below, and please help us beat the algorithm to get the word out on independent news you will not find anywhere. Thank you so much, and good luck in 2026.
Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around, and he found out.
Hi, I'm Eddie DeMarsh. I'm with the Trends Journal. I'm with Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector from scottritter.com. Scott, thank you for joining the Trends Journal today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to get right into it with the Venezuela military incursion from the U.S. to oust Maduro on Saturday. Scott, Venezuela knew that there was a major military buildup in the Caribbean. They knew that this could be happening. There were tough talks between countries. Maduro insisted that he was going to stay and fight. And also it seemed as though he had support from the country to stay in that fight and defend him. We heard about militias with like 1 million people that were going to vex any kind of invasion and defend Caracas from the United States imperialists. We didn't see that happen. From what we saw from the outcome, it looked like the U.S. just essentially waltzed right in there, took Maduro, and left. How do you explain that?
You know, I've said all along, I'm on record saying, I think going back to September, I published an article in Energy Intelligence called Marco Rubio's War, where I laid out the American case against Maduro. Not that I support it. I'm just laying out the case, stating the facts as they exist, as seen and as influences the United States. And I made it clear that we could take Maduro anytime we wanted to. It's just a statement of fact. We could take the Mexican president anytime we want to. We could take the president of Colombia anytime we want to. We can take any leader anywhere in the Western Hemisphere anytime we want to. That's just the reality of the situation. We shouldn't. It's against international law, but we can. One of the reasons why we can do this is that we have the ability to buy influence. And this is what's happened here. You know, basically Maduro was betrayed by political and economic and military elites who were lured by the promise of money, whether direct payments made by the CIA, which is sort of their forte, or indirect payments in the form of, you know, promised economic benefits that would accrue, you know, once sanctions are lifted. But sanctions can only be lifted if that bad man Maduro is removed from power. So will you do what you can to help us remove Maduro from power so we can have the money start flowing to your bank accounts? And this is what's happened. The CIA has, you know, while everybody's been distracted by the ships, you know, roaming off the coast of Venezuela, the CIA has been in there, you know, quietly taking advantage of the many fractures that exist in Venezuelan society. Yeah, you know, Maduro can generate several million militia members. The militia members are nothing, zero, unless they're backed by something of substance. Because in and of themselves, it's an unsustainable movement. It's chaos. It's anarchy. It's not something that's real. To be real, they have to be backed by, you know, entities and institutions like the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Interior, things of this nature. Ask yourself why, you know, Maduro had at least 32, there's 32 dead Cubans protecting him. He's the president of Venezuela. Venezuela has a Ministry of Defense. Ministry of Defense has Venezuelan soldiers who ostensibly take oaths to uphold and defend whatever it is they're defending, the president of their country. Why does he have to have Cubans going? Now, people say that he inherited this from Hugo Chavez. Why did Chavez need Cubans? The bottom line is Venezuela has been a place that the United States has owned for decades. We own everybody in Venezuela. There's nobody we can't get to, directly or indirectly. We own the families. We own the oil. We own everything. And when we decide to put a price on things, we'll find people willing to take the price. And that's what happened. Enough people took the American dollars and the promise of American dollars to turn their back, to do nothing, or to do something that facilitated us going in and grabbing Maduro. Now, mark you, that's all we did. We didn't do anything else. You know, Donald Trump's talking about putting Marco Rubio in power and, you know, Hegseth and all this stuff. No, We didn't do anything else other than seize Maduro. Now, that may prove to be enough, or it may prove to be nothing. We don't know. We don't know where this prosecution is going to go. But the bottom line is, I think my excitement over this has got my dogs excited because they're out there just barking up a storm.
I think they want the peanut brittle, potentially.
Well, I think they want the peanut brittle that they were stealing before the show, but who knows what they want. If the wind blows outside, these dogs get excited. So, there's nothing of substance taking place, but that apparently doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, this is a big deal. This is the United States acting out. If you read the National Security Strategy document of the United States very carefully, they explicitly talk about the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And in short, it comes down to this: we own the Western Hemisphere. If you don't like it, you'll die. If you're a leader of a nation in the Western Hemisphere and you don't do what we say, we will remove you. If you are a foreign power operating in the Western Hemisphere, we will remove you. This is Fortress America. This is Donald Trump acting out on that which he has promised for some time now. A lot of people dismissed it. I remember when the strategy came out in November, I wrote a paper about it, saying, hey, guys, wake up. This is real. And they're like, nah, it's just words. Trump can't do this. He's not going to do this. He doesn't have the support to do this. Trump's doing it. I mean, in the Western Hemisphere is an area of the world where he can do it without anybody stopping us. What's Russia going to do? Not a damn thing. What's China going to do? Nothing. They can do nothing. What is Europe going to do? Nothing. Nobody can do anything. Literally nothing. China is going to lose every single one of its assets in the Western Hemisphere. The $1.3 billion port that they built in Chancay, Peru, it belongs to America. Thank you, China, for building that port. And all the rail interconnectivity, we own it too. Now, we may not own it now, but we will. Because China doesn't have a blue water navy that can deploy 700,000 troops to Peru to defend their investment. And that's what it would require right now. Russia can do nothing. Cuba is at greater risk today of falling than ever before because there's not a damn thing Russia can do to stop the United States from acting on this. And, this is where the evil genius of sanctions comes in. I've been saying, I'm giving away the paper I'm writing right now, but I've been saying for some time now that sanctions is the evidence of a lack of policy, that what happens when the United States doesn't know what to do, we sanction you. It's a way of saying, look, we're doing something, but we don't really know why we're sanctioning you, what we want to achieve. But over the years, the sanctions policy has matured, and it is now the foundational element of regime change. We sanction you not to bring you down by sanctions. See, that was the mistake I and other people were making, that the sanctions would collapse the economies. No, all the sanctions have to do is bring pain to a certain segment of society. And I'm not talking about the people, because we never care about the people. I'm talking about the political and economic elites that control the things. These are the people that we tend to buy out all the time when we have good relations with people. When we have bad relations, what we do is like to remind the people that we once had good relations with how good your life was. You guys remember when you got on the Gulfstream airline and flew over and we had that big party in Cancun and all the money you had in your bank account and how life was great, sent your kids off to ski resorts and all. Would you want to do that again? Because it can happen again. But we have to get so-and-so out of the way. We buy people off doing that. And Venezuela is sort of the modern day manifestation of this. We bought off an entire class of Venezuelans. The truth will come out. The CIA has been very, very busy. They've been very naughty boys. They got a lot of coal in their stocking. Unless Trump is the Santa, then they got everything they asked for. But the CIA has been very, very, very busy in Venezuela. But they're very, very busy elsewhere too. Think of Iran right now. Think of the demonstrations taking place in the streets. Where did this come from? This came from the fact that Iran opened the door to this possibility by saying sanctions hurt, and we will consider normalizing relations with the West to get the sanctions lifted. And when as soon as you say that, there's a segment in Iranian society that went, oh, really? You're going to lift sanctions so I can make money again. I'm happy. So now they start moving forward, betting on the come that they're going to have the sanctions lifted. And then they realize that the United States is never going to lift sanctions because it never was about making life better, it's about getting rid of these people. Now the United States says, once sanctions lifted, he's got to go. And that begins the turmoil. And I say this about Russia too. And this is the gist of the article I'm writing. Russia's about to make a fatal mistake. If Russia believes for a second that the United States is ever going to lift sanctions against it, that is a belief in vain. We will never lift sanctions because the sanctions have been imposed and linked to the removal of Vladimir Putin from power. That's the reason why the sanctions were put in there. And that's the reason why they will continue. The United States isn't going to lift sanctions to have this magic moment of economic bliss between Russia and the United States. The whole Kirill Dmitriev, Steve Witkoff interaction is a fantasy designed on purpose to get people in Russia excited about the potential of better economic relations, to get the people to say, oh, what happens if America can come in and start investing and we can more effectively extract oil, deep oil in the Arctic, or we can be more effective in our management of existing oil wells? What happens if we can, turn these $1 trillion of rare earth minerals that are currently in the ground and actually, monetize them and the money we can make? And they're starting to spend that money. They're starting to buy in their minds those Mercedes and those BMWs and those Gulf Airs and those vacations. And it's all there, baby. It's all there. But Donald Trump just told them, no, Vladimir Putin's not making me happy. Vlad baby's not doing what I want him to do. So no, not only am I not going to lift the sanctions, I'm going to impose new sanctions on you, Rosneft and Lukoil, and all you other money grubbers out there who thought you were going to get rich, but you ain't getting rich until you get rid of Vladimir Putin. And that's the goal. That is the goal, and that is the objective. And the Russians need to wake up right now and take a look at Venezuela, because if you don't think that Russians can be bought out by the CIA, then you don't know the CIA and you don't know corrupt Russians. Vladimir Putin, they have a sanctions shield right now. Everybody views the sanctions as this tool that's used to attack Russia. Today, I view it differently. It's a shield to protect Russia. As long as the sanctions shield is in place, Russia has to learn how to cope without the West, without the money of the United States, without the investments of Western Europe. And what Russia has shown is that it can only not just cope, but they can succeed, they can thrive without it. You don't need the West. The West seeks your destruction. Look at Venezuela. That is your future. Don't let it happen. Don't fall victim to the greed, the avarice of Western wealth, because it comes with a heavy link. And that link is we control everything. You control nothing. And Russia, the last time that happened, you had the decade of the 1990s. Do you really want to go back to that time? The answer is no. The sanctions shield. Protect yourself. Keep America out by keeping America out.
Scott, is Venezuela a done deal? Do you think that we would ever need to put U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela to either do law enforcement or just to keep the government in power? And if so, Scott, do you think that would be a very dangerous escalation in that game? Does that open up U.S. troops to real exposure to these militia members, to these gangs? What do you think about that?
Let me just make it as clear as possible. If we put troops on the ground, we would kill every single one of these militia members. We would suffer casualties. In a decade, we lost 10,000 Americans, 50,000 Americans in Vietnam. Do you know how many millions of Vietnamese we killed? Do you know what the kill ratios are to achieve that? Do you understand what would happen to the Venezuelan militias if they thought for a moment they could stand up? Oh, they're in the villages, we'll blow the villages up. We'll kill them all. Oh, you might ambush an American patrol here and there. And yes, we'll have body bags coming home of dead Americans, but we will close with and destroy every single one of these people. But we're not going to do it because we don't need to do it. There's no reason for us to go and exhaust ourselves in Venezuela. We own Venezuela. What do you want to accomplish there? I don't need any one of these militia members. They're impoverished peasants sitting in the middle of nowhere with no future whatsoever. Eventually, they will cave. I don't need to give them a cause to rally around. I just need them to be hungry, because eventually their hunger and their disease and their poor, pitiful life will cause them to go crawling to Venezuelan elites and say, save me. That's who I need to buy, the Venezuelan elites. That's all I have to do is buy them. And if anybody gets in my way, name me a Venezuelan that's going to get in my way. We already know what will happen. They'll be taken out, either killed through direct action or taken prisoner. Either way, there's not a single person in Venezuela today who's safe. And the Venezuelans, trust me, as this goes on, you're going to see there's going to be voices starting to rise up in Venezuela saying, let's calm down a little bit. Yes, Maduro was our man, but he's not here anymore. We got to make a good deal out of this. Maybe we do this deal with Chevron. Maybe we do this. And that's the approach the United States is taking right now. Soft power backed up by the real threat. We don't need to kill 1 million Venezuelan militia members. We only need to kill one or two senior Venezuelans who think that they're sovereign. And they will find out that they're not, that Venezuela is not a sovereign nation anymore. Venezuela will do what America tells it to do or die. That's just the sad reality of where we are. I'm not happy about this. But all the people, the reason why I get bit is that I just have too many people. The Venezuelan militia will say, no, guys, please don't promote that, because anybody who's promoting the active resistance of the Venezuelan militia, you don't care about the Venezuelan people. You do need to understand that we will kill them all because we don't care about them. We, the American government, we, the people of the United States, we don't lose any sleep over the suffering of the Venezuelan people. None at all. And if you want to give us an excuse to go in there and lay waste, peace through strength, give Pete Hegseth more chances to masturbate to pictures of dead bodies, please go forth and do it. Encourage this kind of war. No, the best thing you can do is let this stupidity play out, because eventually what's going to happen is Trump will reach the limits of what Fortress America can give him, because that's what he's building right now is Fortress America. He will seek to solidify control over the Western Hemisphere. And he will do this.
So, Scott, what does that mean?
I just want to point it out that Trump will succeed in securing the Western Hemisphere, but then fail.
But does that mean try to take over Colombia? Try to take over Cuba?
What do you mean try to take over? We own Colombia.
And we own Cuba too. Is that what you're saying as well?
They will do what we tell them to do to survive. Yeah. If they don't, they will die. Guess what else we own? Greenland.
I know. Denmark's not going to do anything to defend Greenland.
Say again?
Denmark would not do anything to defend Greenland.
Europe won't do anything.
Europe wouldn't do anything.
The Vikings out there saying they're going to, go jump in the longboat and start rowing, please. Europe sold their soul to America so long ago, and I just find it ludicrous for Europe, who sat there and watched this dismember Serbia, strip away Kosovo in total violation of international law, who sat there and used Ukraine as a proxy to bring down Russia, suddenly start saying international law matters. Weren't you guys who were talking about stealing hundreds of billions of dollars of Russian sovereign wealth just a little while ago because Europe just thought it was a good idea? It's such a joke now for Europe to suddenly wake up and go, oh my God, international law matters. No, it doesn't. You don't matter.
It's nothing about Europe. Is it the law of the jungle right now, Scott? Are we living in a 100%
world? 100% the law of the jungle.
Law of the jungle, isn't it?
Except this. It's interesting debate going on inside Russia right now, where people are waking up saying, hey, we keep obeying the rules. And I just want to point to people, Russia's so-called invasion of Ukraine was done in strict accordance with international law. The people who say it wasn't just are ignorant of international law. The fact of the matter is, under the principles of self-determination, the peoples of the Donbass, Lugansk, and Donetsk held a referendum, and they voted for independence. They're allowed to do that. That's what self-determination means. And then they requested the Russians to recognize this in the Russian parliament, using due process and consideration, recognize the independence of these nations. And so then what Russia did is entered into what's called a collective security agreement. Now, people can sit there, oh, come on, that's cooking the books. Well, it's NATO that raised the whole concept of a collective security agreement when they went into Kosovo, guys. So Russia's just taken the Western playbook and sort of improving on it. And then with the collective security agreement, when Ukraine mobilized 60,000 troops, the West tends to forget this part, 60,000 troops to begin an offensive to conquer the Donbass in March, Russia, citing Article 51 in the Caroline Doctrine of it that allows for preemptive self-defense, launched a preemptive strike. It's called Article 51. It's called international law. It's called the United Nations Charter. Russia did everything by the books, did it right. There's no defending what we did in Venezuela. You can't even come close to articulating a similar case. Europe can't articulate anything they've done with the money, with anything. Russia's the only team out there, along with China, that are playing by the rules. And they will continue to do so. Remember, in February 4th, I believe, of 2021, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin met in Beijing on the eve of the Winter Olympics, and they published a 5,000-word manifesto, which was a declaration of war on the rules-based international order. And they said that we reject American hegemony and we promote instead a law-based international order based upon the United Nations Charter. So it's the law of the jungle in terms of the United States being, Shere Khan roaming, the jungle at will. We all know what happened to Shere Khan, don't we? Because the law of the jungle came into play, the law of the jungle. And right now, Trump is having a field day. He's out there. He's picking the low-hanging fruit. I mean, there was no more low-hanging fruit than Nicolas Maduro, sorry to say. And there's other low-hanging fruit out there that he's going to pluck. Greenland is Greenland's already fallen on the ground. You don't even have to pull it off the tree. It's just there to take. And he will do all this. But there's Mowgli and there's Bagheera and, what's that big bear's name? They're out there and they've got, Ka, the snake that's going to obey the law. There's people out there in the world today who don't want the world to turn to a jungle. Trump has identified the Western Hemisphere as his land. It's now his jungle. And he, like Shere Khan, is just running wild. But the law of the jungle will be reasserted. And that law is the United Nations Charter. What Trump is going to find is there are limits to American power, and those limits are defined by the boundaries of Fortress America. And at some point in time, America is going to be isolated, and it's going to find that it has backed itself into a corner, and the president's name isn't going to be Donald Trump. And we'll have a Senate that doesn't have Lindsey Graham and these other warmongers. They age out. That's the beauty of time. Is that our institutions age out. I've always said, people said, when will America get out of Iraq? After we invaded in 2003, I said, the problem is we have generations of American political leaders who have invested too much political capital into this action. And what we need is for Congress to purge itself of those who are linked to this war vote. And that's what happened. Eventually, 2 decades later, Congress got purged sufficiently to where there wouldn't be political risk accrued by saying, hey, maybe we pull out of Iraq, maybe we're not committed to Iraq. You're going to find in a decade or so that this current Congress which is singularly, especially in the Senate, influenced by some very old people, is going to age itself out. And the remaining hawks that are there are going to be isolated, and there's going to be new blood in there that's going to recognize the inherent failures of the United States to perform in accordance with, what it should be doing. And the United States will once again get on a path of the rule of law, but it's going to take time, and we're not going to see any movement until the people who are empowered politically today are removed. And for those people out there who think that the progressives are going to be better, understand we got here because of Joe Biden. We got here because of Barack Obama. We got here because of Hillary Clinton. We got here because of the same people. They're the same people, the same policies. Under Joe Biden, we had a general, Laura Richardson, the head of Southern Command, who was sitting there writing the script for what Trump is doing today. If Trump wasn't doing this, Biden would be doing this, because this is the only direction America could go as the American empire is collapsing. So let's not pretend that this is Donald Trump in a vacuum. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is America. This is what America has become. The nation of America has become a nation ruled by narcissists, whether they're Democratic or they're Republican, it doesn't matter. Cults of personality. How else do you explain the Democrats holding on to Biden when his brain is dead? Yeah. How else do you sit there and keep propping up this man if it's not about a cult of personality? Yeah. Donald Trump is a cult of personality. J.D. Vance is a cult of personality. Marco Rubio is a cult of personality. We need to eliminate the personalities and start bringing back the principles. And when we do that, we'll start electing the right people, and hopefully our country can survive long enough that we can start navigating back on course. The tragedy is that there's going to be hundreds of millions of people affected by this American disease, this narcissistic, egotistic, insanity that has infected our leadership. Lindsey Graham was cackling like I don't know. I mean, I
have this video. Let me play this video 40 seconds, Scott. Here's Lindsey Graham. I think this is what you're referring to.
Could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26, in our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
Well, that wasn't him cackling, but I know that video. And
it's in that video sequence.
Yeah, it's in that video.
That he's just cackling like a hyena. But he's one of the people that need to age out. I'm a rule of law kind of guy. I would never advocate for the forcible removal of anybody from office. I believe in the Constitution of the United States. I believe that the people of South Carolina have failed themselves and the nation by continuing to elect Lindsey Graham. But Lindsey Graham is mortal, and then someday his disease-ridden body will cease functioning, and they'll take his bloated corpse and they'll bury it in the ground, and somebody else will be elected governor or senator for the people of South Carolina, and hopefully they'll recognize the mess they made by empowering this guy, this embarrassment to humanity, this embarrassment to anything, any notion of what makes America a great nation. But we have to age out, and there's a whole host of others that have to age out with him. Because I don't trust the American voter right now, because the American voter has fallen victim to, the allure of narcissism, where we have these personalities come in and we attach, loyalty to, symbols, loyalty to, not reality, but the perceptions of things. When I hear Lindsey Graham talk to the American people about international relations and foreign policy and things of that nature, I just remind myself, and it's a harsh thing to remind, but the American people are the most ignorant people in the world today collectively about the world they live in. They know nothing of this. They know nothing of Venezuela. There's very few people like Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil, his wife, who actually travel to Venezuela, interview Venezuelan leadership, interview the people, get to know the economy inside and out so they can speak intelligently about all things Venezuela. I get mocked for going to Russia, but I'm not the perfect Russian analyst. But I'll say this: I'm in a better position to talk about Russia today than 99.99999 infinity nines % of American people out there, because I'm going to Russia. I'm meeting with the Russians. I'm seeing the Russians. I'm trying my best to understand them and bring that understanding back. But most Americans sit at home and are just lazy, intellectually lazy, and they believe the crap fed to them by the government. My parents, I love them to death. They're both still alive. I just saw them for Christmas. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. But you guys know what you did. You knew back when I resigned as a weapons inspector and was speaking out against the policies of weapons of mass destruction and using that as a vehicle for war. You know that you came up and said, but the government, Scott, the government is saying something different. Why are you going against the government? Rush Limbaugh is saying things differently, Scott. Why are you going against Rush Limbaugh? Oh, maybe because I was the chief weapons inspector and responsible for intelligence operations in Iraq for 7 years. Maybe I was the guy that knows better than anybody. Maybe I'm the guy that informed the government and therefore is in a position where the government's lying. But people, they don't do that. They buy into the perception of power. So when you throw the title senator or congressman or secretary or president there, they go, oh my God, these people are official. They couldn't have gotten there unless they're really good.
Scott, one thing that I do see on military events like this weekend, media companies, they will say, look at our military, look at our brave men and women doing this job. And then essentially you're not going to criticize that in general. You're going to say, wow, yes, USA, look at what we just did. What other country can do that? So, I think they do play to a patriotism sometimes when it comes to like WMDs and defending America. I think that sometimes is something that the government certainly and media outlets play towards.
Sure. I'm not going to denigrate the heroism or the professionalism of the Delta Force operatives who carried out this raid. Why would I? From a purely military standpoint, it was an impressive thing. But I asked the people to read deeply into what happened here. Okay, the president himself says that Delta built a mock-up, a full-scale mock-up of the site that was being assaulted. Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know this, but we know what they did with bin Laden. Books have been written about that. We know the kind of preparation that went in during the 1990s when we sent Tier 1 people, Delta and SEALs, to the former Yugoslavia to hunt down, high-value targets when we wanted to do the takedown of somebody on the list. We had to know the which way the door handle turned, what was the materials of the door, the steps, how many steps there were when you entered, to the left and right, what was the and if you couldn't answer those questions, they didn't do the operation. Why? Because, it takes a whole lot of courage and skill to execute these missions. These are only humans. And a bullet kills Delta as quickly as it kills anybody else. And if the bullets start flying in a concerted fashion, you're going to lose everybody. So they don't make a living committing suicide. They don't go forth. If you go back to, the operation, lone survivor operation, 4 SEALs in the mountains, you guys do know that they weren't really SEALs. They were from a SEAL delivery team. These weren't the best and the brightest. These were guys who had some training, but they weren't very good at what they did. Their mission was crap. And they went in there, they got compromised. It didn't go down the way the movie makes it go down. The lone survivor threw away his weapon and ran away, abandoning his fellow SEALs on the mountaintop to be murdered or killed by the insurgents. And then the SEALs, violating all protocol, jumped into a single helicopter and flew out there without any escort and got shot down. They all died. That's because they didn't plan the operation very well. But even if you do plan the operation well, things can go bad very quickly. And so these guys built a full-scale mock-up of where the president is. How did they get that intelligence? Nobody's asking that question. There were 32 Cuban security guards killed in this operation. All right? Heavy fighting. You go in there, you have to know where every single one of them is, what their weapons are, because when this thing went down, it went down so fast. You won't understand how fast this went down. These guys came in and they knew exactly where to go. And as they went, the people were where they were supposed to be. Pop, pop, pop. They're dead. They move up, pop, dead. One Cuban, let me finish this because this is important. One Cuban out of place kills every Delta Force member. If the Delta guy turns around and the Cuban's not there, but they're shooting him, it's over at that point. And it didn't get over. Why? Because they knew everything. Why did they know everything? How did they know everything? So there's a lot of courage that went into this. But at the end of the day, I saw a video of an MH-43 helicopter hovering over a high-rise building in downtown Caracas for a significant period of time. That ain't how it's done, guys. You know, when you come in a high intensity thing, you'll come in fast rope. They're bringing the rope back up. In real life, you come in fast rope and the ropes are cut and they drop and you go because you don't want to be the helicopter hovering over a high-rise building in an urban environment with your navigation lights on, not off. So there's just a lot going on here that people aren't picking up on. There was collusion on the inside that made this possible. And without that collusion, this raid would never have gone down.
Scott, I have two more questions for you. I'm a little over time. I appreciate you staying with me and hanging. When the military decides what team to go in, do they say this looks like a job for Delta? For example, we want Delta going into Maduro, or we want Navy SEALs. How would they determine what group to send in, or is it kind of interchangeable? I know that might sound ignorant. How do they determine what group goes in to seize Maduro as opposed to kill bin Laden?
Well, we have two major tier 1 units to do this kind of thing. The Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6, and then the Army Delta Force or whatever, Combat Actions Group or whatever they call themselves nowadays. They tend to, what happens is you tend to be assigned geographic regions where you'll do specialization. For instance, we know that SEAL Team 6 is doing the counter narcotics stuff. They have their black squadron operating in Venezuela, detecting the movement of these boats and reporting it. And then SEAL Team 6 is, taking ownership of, putting steel on target and all that stuff through drones. Bin Laden, this was a SEAL mission because the SEALs were the team in country at the time doing that. Delta was primarily operating in Iraq at the time. To do this operation in Caracas, Delta got the call because they probably had they were probably given that jurisdiction. Delta was heavily involved in a lot of counter narcotics work, hunting down Pablo Escobar and others. That was a Delta thing. Delta probably has the relationships with DEA and others inside country. And so, you give it to the unit that A, has the geographical designation and B, has the long-term expertise. This didn't happen by accident. I mean, this did not happen on a spur of the moment. This has been planned for a very long time, extraordinarily well rehearsed, down to the second, down to the round of ammunition, down to the footstep, down to the timing, everything. There was nothing left to chance here, which means they had totality of information up to date. How did they get this? How did they know where everybody was at that time? I mean, there's sources and methods involved. I'm not going to give them away. I'm just sitting there saying, what did they know? They knew it from something, and they knew it in a way, again, just to show you the importance of this. The first time we tried to do, large-scale hostage rescue was the failed attempt to recapture Americans that were held in Tehran. Beckwith, hostage team rescue commander, Delta commander, they were getting intelligence in the end from, sources inside the embassy and stuff. The CIA was finally getting in there and getting information back, but they didn't trust it. They didn't trust it because it wasn't theirs. And so after that, that's where we created something called the Intelligence Support Activity, ISA. It's been renamed a million times since then, but they do what's called Advanced Force Operations. And, what they do is extraordinarily classified. But I'm just here to tell you right now that if I were a betting man, there was an AFO team in Caracas doing their thing. And their thing is covert intelligence collection. And they use a variety of means. But Delta would not have carried out this raid relying exclusively on CIA information or anything of that nature. They would have wanted it backed up with their own people and confirmation to make sure that, when they come to a door and they've planned that door is going to open inward and it's going to be at this degree when they do their thing. If they get to that door and they find out, no, the door's opening outward, they don't want that surprise.
Yeah.
When they come to a door they have to blow, they want to have calculated the exact amount of high explosive charge they're going to put on that door, bang the door and go in. They don't want to sit there and bang it and find out that the door is actually reinforced steel and it's still intact. Now they made a big noise, and probably because it was steel, it blew half their guys down. Two of them are knocked out. One is, wounded badly, and you still have to finish the assault. Delta doesn't succeed when that happens. Everything has to go the way it's planned to go. And you do that with extremely good intelligence, timely intelligence. There's people in Venezuela that weren't looking out for the best interests of Nicolas Maduro. That's for sure.
Last question, Scott. Do you see any implications with Iran in the U.S. move to oust Maduro? I heard one person say that it looks like the U.S. may be trying to seize an alternate oil stream in case there's a major war in the Middle East, meaning Iran could take out infrastructure in the Gulf states if there's a major U.S./Israel attack on the country, and the U.S. is looking to shore up a new stream of oil from Venezuela. At least that was one of the theories I heard. Do you think that this has any implications towards a future war with Iran?
No, I think it's totally separate. First of all, we don't own the Venezuelan oil yet. I mean, like I said, all we did is capture Maduro and his wife and kill a bunch of people. But what we are trying to do is leverage that action into intimidating people who continue to support Maduro and empowering those people who support us to achieve a soft power regime change that doesn't require boots on the ground. And then at that point in time, we effectuate new relationships with oil manufacturers. But it's going to take years to get this Venezuelan oil online. So no, we're not. There's no linkage. Venezuela is happening in a vacuum. Trump is in office for 4 years. He wants to achieve a lot during this time. The takedown of Cuba, the takedown of the Ayatollah. And so what we have right now is, again, one of those sanctions-based, everything I talked to you about at the beginning, where we put out there the potential of sanctions being lifted. Hell, we could do business with the Iranians, Trump said. I see us doing business with these people, getting sanctions lifted. But it's the Ayatollah's got to go. And now they've used that as to generate things up. This isn't Iran's first rodeo. They've done this before. I don't think that these uprisings have a snowball chance in hell of working, but this is the kind of stupidity that the United States is engaged in today.
Scott Ritter, thank you for joining the Trends Journal. We're going to have a link for scottritter.com below. So everyone, I would recommend you checking that out, scottritter.com. Scott, thank you so much and Happy New Year.
Thanks. Happy New Year to you too.